Welcome to the Career Ready podcast. Learn about resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn, interviewing, and all the things you need to be career ready with the Career Services Center at College of DuPage. I'm your host for today's episode, Rebecca Harrington. In addition to learning about resources in the job search process, an important part of being career ready is understanding different career paths. To help us explore the professions in human services, I have invited Jason Floren to talk with me today. Jason is a professor of human services here at College of DuPage. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this program and everything that we do. And yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Great. Before we get started, can you share a short introduction, or as we like to call it, your elevator pitch, both for yourself and maybe a little bit for the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So I sometimes describe myself as accidentally ending up where I am now. I started my career with just a vague sense of wanting to help other people and an interest in doing things with people. You know, I'd taken psychology classes, things like that. But it was a crooked path to find my way here. I've worked in places like hospitals, jails, treatment centers, and then I was in the right place at the right time to be able to teach at College of DuPage in human services. But really the foundation was that experience, you know, working with people out on the front lines. And I just kept going back to school. And so I did that long enough that I was able to teach. But really, it did just start from a genuine desire to work with other people. And then I managed to get here.
Nice. And I would say, you know, being in career services, there are a lot of students that come in and say, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to help people. So you are not alone. I think that's a lot of students. And so I think that's why it's very exciting to hear about this particular career path, because again, that is, I think, a lot of people when trying to figure out what they want to do with their life, right, is they want to help others. And this is definitely a path where that's pretty much the primary goal, right, is to help others.
I would say absolutely. And we love students like that who are uncertain about exactly what they want to do. Again, maybe they just have a vague sense of being interested in other people or thinking that they want to do some type of counseling or some type of giving back. Maybe they're in recovery themselves, or they have family members who are in recovery, have had mental health struggles, addiction struggles, and the people that they encountered, you know, were really influential and made an impact. So we love somebody who's at that stage and they're just sort of getting a sense of who they are, what they want to do. And then our program, I think, is an opportunity to experiment a little bit with those different opportunities and different paths that you have. Human services is kind of broad in that sense, but that gives you a lot of different opportunities.
Yeah, that's great. That's exciting. And so kind of building off of that, then maybe just talk a little bit about the field of human services and maybe those kind of just general career paths. Like, what is that? You know, human services, like you said, it covers a lot of different things.
Yeah, absolutely. So at its core, I think human services is about impacting your community in a meaningful way and engaging in the different needs that people in the community have. I think you could say if you imagined putting like psychology, sociology, and social work in a blender, you might get something that looks like human services. And then we kind of have 3 levels you could think of in terms of where you would start your career or pathways. So at our level, which is associate's degree level, 2-year level, you can get an associate's degree in human services. You could also get a certificate at the state level and become a certified alcohol and drug counselor, which is a really cool pathway for people. And so at that 2-year level, you can get entry-level work as an addictions counselor, a peer support specialist, case manager, something like that. And that's a great opportunity to get into the field, be doing a lot of direct client services, and really be on the front lines doing meaningful work. From there, also go into the kind of 4-year level, bachelor's level. There are degrees in human services at the 4-year level. And from there, you could be doing more administrative management type work. So maybe a little bit higher tier, combining some of the direct client services, but more like program oversight as well. And then if you want to go all the way to the master's degree level, then you're looking at more of a clinical type of background where you're looking at becoming a licensed social worker, licensed professional counselor. And so all of our students, or, you know, among our students, all of those pathways are different opportunities that they have.
I love that. That's a great way of thinking about it because, you know, I think if someone is interested in, you know, something where like, no, I have a couple semesters or a couple years, and then I want to be able to be out there and doing something, that there is a path for you if you want to not be quite as direct, but you still want to help people, right? Versus getting that clinical role. That's really exciting. And I feel like things are stackable, right? In that, if you wanted to get your associates and then go work, in that counseling environment, but then you want to go back to school, it sounds like that's something that happened for you, right? So it's nice because you can kind of grow and change and build your career if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think of my own path as crooked, but it does make sense in retrospect. So like you said, I graduated with a philosophy degree. So like, what are you doing with that? It was an awesome experience. But then I started working in a hospital setting, but also going back to school and getting a certificate to be an addictions counselor, and then working in a treatment center, and then going to school to get a master's. And so it was crooked, but it also built on itself. And over time, different avenues opened up and different opportunities opened up. And I think for a lot of our students, those same things are there. So you piece together what works for you. There isn't one way to get there or one right way to do it. Some people work part-time while going to school. Some people go to school, then go to school again. Some people go straight from our program out into the field and work their whole career as, an addictions counselor or whatever it is they're interested in. So all of those things are possibilities. And again, I would say not one right way, but figure out what works for you.
I love that flexibility. And I think a lot of times people think of, well, like human services, that's social work. I have to get my master's. So it's nice to know, like, no, there's actually other paths in there. Yeah. Okay. What strengths or skills do students gain while completing one of the human services program options here at COD? And then, we just talked about potentially getting a bachelor's degree or a job as a next step. So, how do those skills that they're learning help them for that next step?
So I would start by saying there's two really fundamental things that we try to enforce. So even if somebody just takes a few classes with us and then they part ways and seek a different educational or career opportunity, we really want them to leave with a sense of self-awareness. So increasing their own kind of self-awareness. And that's one of the things that's absolutely necessary to be successful in the field. And along with that, enhancing empathy. So it sort of all centers around communication in a lot of ways. So understanding yourself and having a good foundation about where you're coming from. And then also being able to reach out and understand somebody else and where they're coming from. And both of those things are going to be useful in all kinds of arenas in somebody's life, as far as interpersonal communication goes, relationships, careers, but particularly in human services, or if somebody goes on into counseling or social work, you're going to need those two things, that self-awareness and that empathy for others. So we really want everybody to leave with those two kinds of skills. You could describe them as soft skills, but they're going to be so universally important. And then in addition to that, we really try to enforce ethical guidelines, boundaries as far as working with other people. Self-care is something we talk about all the time because it's just so necessary in our field. And then having that as a foundation, I find that students are just very ready to go on to the four-year schools and the graduate schools because they're just in a better place right away. Our students are in a unique position of getting a taste of the field while they're still at the associate's level because everybody has to do an internship. So once you do that, you're right on the front lines. You're working with other people. You are in the community. And it's going to change your life pretty much on the spot. So by the time you've even gotten to a four-year school or a graduate school, you've already had a huge head start because of all this experience and all this kind of real world exposure.
That's really great. And that makes sense that you kind of almost have to, like, as you're learning to understand yourself, it's also teaching you about how to understand others, right? And that just makes a lot of sense. And I know some people who've worked in this field, and definitely that self-care aspect is very important.
Yeah, it definitely is. And when we talk about self-awareness, we're not asking anybody to be like perfect.
Sure, I could see that being what people think.
That like to be a good counselor, you have to have no issues and everything resolved. And in fact, we're all very messy. And part of our field is kind of an embrace the mess message. And that's a good thing. But everybody's going to bring some baggage to the table. And that's okay. But we need to be on top of it. That's the self-awareness piece and being able to manage our own story and understand our own story so that we can embrace other people's stories.
That makes sense. Yeah. It definitely sounds like classes that could be helpful for all students, not just those going into the field, for sure.
Yeah, obviously I'm biased, but I'd like to think that. And a lot of students start with one of our courses called Introduction to Addictions, which actually does meet the graduate requirement as a contemporary life skill. And so it's kind of a nice sampler to see if you're interested in the material. And even if you're not, you're still getting something very useful with the credits, and it applies toward graduation. But I think people really find the material interesting. And so that's a really nice entry into the field, or at least into kind of exposing yourself to what human services is all about.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Okay. So then you kind of you started talking about this, but let's take a little bit deeper dive. So you mentioned an internship. So, what are the experiences and opportunities that you recommend developing professionals seek out when looking to get into social work or counseling, therapy?
Yeah. So even before you get to the internship stage, I think anybody can benefit from some experience in their community. So that might be volunteer work or working with some kind of local agency. We try to reinforce that as well, because our introductory course requires what we call service learning. So you get credit toward the class for doing essentially volunteer work with a local agency. And that class includes 20 hours of that. And in doing so, you're getting a good taste of what the field is like. You're also networking and building up some connections in the field and getting a sense of what's out there. I think at first it can be overwhelming because there's just so many different organizations and agencies out there. So this is a way to start learning about what those look like and what services are provided. So I definitely think people need to have some experience doing volunteer work and being part of their community. And then as you go through the coursework, you can keep building on that. And once you get to field work, you're going to be just much more comfortable with what that requires.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of field work do students do?
So we have agreements with a mix of agencies in the community. Think of places like crisis centers, addictions treatment centers, sometimes local hospitals, places that provide mental health, domestic violence agencies. There's an organization in DuPage called People's Resource Center that provides food and other supplies and just support for the community. So again, it's broad. It's just kind of like our field is as far as the opportunities, but it often involves working with a not-for-profit and providing some type of either direct client service or helping people access resources and just support community members.
Awesome. That's great. And yes, People's Resource Center, if you are in the DuPage area, is a great place. They do a lot of good work. All right. So then, and this I guess you kind of answered this, but just if there's anything else you want to add about, what you're doing in your program here at College of DuPage to prepare students for working in the field.
So I think the whole program really lays a nice foundation step by step as you go through the coursework, as you do those kind of volunteer opportunities, participate in club activities, that by the time you get to fieldwork, you feel like you at least have some idea. It's always a different level to actually be out in the field and be client facing, but you at least feel comfortable enough, like you have the skills and you have the confidence to be out there working with people. And I would say the opportunity, one of the great opportunities we have, I should say, is for students to continue on with their education. So getting an associate's degree or getting a certificate from us is fantastic. Of course, we encourage that. But then there is also the opportunity to go on. We have a 3+1 agreement with National Louis University, so students can transition right into their 4-year program. And so what they could do is they can do 3 years at College of DuPage, 90 credits, and then they just have 1 year remaining with our partner institution, National Louis University. They get those classes at a reduced price, and they get to take the classes on our campus. I know I sound like a commercial for...
It's true, though. That is helpful.
It's such a unique thing, and people almost don't believe it when they first hear it, but it's like, yes, you're getting a bachelor's degree for the same price that people are paying for maybe 1 year or even 1 semester of college at private schools. And again, that's just going to open so many doorways in the field and, more opportunities to go on. From there, you can get your master's degree. Some people even go on for their doctorate degree. I just tell people, don't stop. If you have the momentum and you are, enjoying the material, it gets even better as you go on, really, as you get into graduate school and beyond, because everything you're studying is what you're interested in. And usually it's what you're actively doing with your career. So it just all ties together really well.
Yeah. That's awesome. Is there anything else that you recommend to students or young professionals to prepare for working in human services?
Like I mentioned, that opportunity, if you get to volunteer or be part of your community in some way, because that's what human services ultimately is going to be, is working with people on a direct level who are in your community and who need support, need some kind of services. So any chance you have to do that, no matter what your age is going to help build that strength as you come into the program and as you move forward. So I definitely encourage that.
Well, and I also think a big part of it, is thinking about what population you want to work with, or what area you want to support. Because as you said, it's overwhelming how much need there is. And so I think those volunteer experiences are a great place to start for, do you like working with kids? Do you want to work with an older population, low income? Like what is your area? Because we can't help everyone. So thinking about kind of what is an area that you want to focus on, or addictions or whatever, and then, kind of work even within that, you can specialize. So I think the sooner you start with kind of just getting yourself out there and actually getting into it, you can kind of figure that part of it out.
Yeah, that's a great insight, because there are many different populations and you might not know on day one which your population is.
Sure.
And that's totally okay. Again, with our intro class, we try to get people in from the community agencies to come talk about what they do. We try to do some field trips out to some of the sites so you can kind of see what's happening out there. What are the clients like? What do the facilities look like? And give you some idea, but you don't have to decide on day one, which is great. You kind of figure that out along the way.
Yeah, that's excellent. So how could interested listeners find out more about the program here at COD?
So 2 things you could do. We have a website, which is cod.edu/human services. And on there, you're going to see a fun video we made about human services, as well as description of all of our courses and the different degrees and certificates we offer. So cod.edu/human services. Or if you want to simplify it and just email me directly, you can always do that. My email is Floren, Florin, @cod.edu.
All right. Well, thanks to all of our listeners, and special thanks again to you, Jason, for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. And we hope that you enjoyed hearing about careers in human services. And remember, if you have a question for us, you can submit it to careerpodcast@cod.edu, or of course on social media at COD Career Center. And you may hear the answer in a future episode. Thanks for listening.